Cassidy, thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be back.
We know that you're really busy, and so this is so nice you could take an hour and a half of your time.
Sure.
Um, you and I met back in 2019. You were an undergraduate teaching fellow
Yes,
in econ, right? I think.
correct. Yeah, I taught principles of micro and macro under Professor Carter Doyle.
And some of you may actually be in those classes or have taken them. And you had already begun the job search process or career exploration by the time you and I met. We met, I think, first for a resume and cover letter review. But could you tell us a little bit about, just introduce yourself, give us a skim of your resume, and then we'll really get into how you approached your career from the time that you were a student.
Sure, that sounds great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I know it's Friday, so I really appreciate you guys coming out. So I'm originally from a kind of rural town in Pennsylvania, and I kind of grew up not really knowing what I wanted to do. And then I came to UVA, and econ just really stuck out to me. And then as I progressed, particularly finance. So probably jumping forward to my third year, I was applying to internships, and I ended up doing one at a small wealth management firm in Charlottesville. It's called Wilkinson Wealth Management. It's just more of like a small family office, because probably my first and second year, that's what I thought I wanted to do. And while the internship was great and I really enjoyed it, the people were fantastic, I realized that it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, which I think is actually a really valuable thing. So many internships are about getting a return offer and that. But for me, I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do, which was incredibly valuable myself, because now I found what I wanted to do. So I did that, and then I started applying for this job in August. But just to go back a little bit, so I was an econ TA. I was only able to do that for 1 year because I just actually graduated from UVA in December. So technically it was the class of 2021, but I did graduate in 2020. But yeah, so I was an econ TA, and I wasn't able to do it because they make you do a full year. So I only got to do it for 1 year, but that was a fantastic experience. And I'm not sure how, what the year of you guys is, but if you ever get the opportunity to be a TA, it is just absolutely fantastic. And the leadership qualities that you learn are just unparalleled. Like, you really just can't get that until you have 500 people staring at you in a lecture hall. So I think that was really like a defining moment for me in realizing, how can I take this experience that I've learned both in micro and macro and expand it. And finance was really just where I stuck. I've always loved investing. Ever since I was like 16, I had my own Roth IRA, and I've been investing personally, which is something that's really important for this job, because we're managing UVA's money, but at the end of the day, we need to frame it in terms of how would we manage our own money. So that is definitely a really important trait if you're going into investment management. And a lot of people kind of go into finance hoping to, get a big salary or something, but you really have to, it's really a performance-driven career. So you really have to, know what you're talking about and know what it feels like to lose money yourself. And there's a lot of dynamics that go into that. But for me, I was always interested in finance. And I thought that, wealth management would be where I wanted to go, but ended up doing more institutional investing, which is what a firm like UVIMCO would be called, endowment management. There's different foundations, pension plans, like things like that. It's all kind of the same realm of institutional investing, where you're investing on behalf of billions of dollars and some type of client. For us, it's just UVA. But I think those were really the defining things for me in going, being a TA and then doing that internship and realizing it's not what I wanted to do.
Okay, that's really helpful. I mean, a lot of gems just there in what you shared with us, speaking about that internship, right? How pivotal that was for you, that you loved investing always, right? So these are things that you all want to be thinking about. What do you already like to do?
Yeah.
And often there is a career that's related. So we're thinking that you do have an interest, right, in finance because you are here. I want to just follow up a little bit on what you said about Wilkinson and what was it that you realized it wasn't the right fit for you? Because this is so important. In recognizing what we don't like, the why, or what might be better.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think it sounds bad to say, but I think that job was a little too entrepreneurial for me, which I know a lot of people really love that and kind of the idea of starting on your own, but I more wanted something where I could learn from mentors that were already there and a little bit more stability. honestly, that just comes down to my personality. But I watched them in this internship really not struggle. They're very successful, but really focus on marketing and all these different things. How can I grow the business, which obviously people do in a lot of different careers. But I realized that for me, that kind of stressed me out a little bit, and it didn't give me as much time to actually think through investments, and it just wasn't for me. I know a lot of people that is great for them, and a lot of people have different careers, not just a small wealth management firm that would, allow them to do that. But for me, it wasn't necessarily my thing, and that's not what you have to do at UVIMCO. It's very established. It's a well-established institution that's been around since I think 1970. And it was really great for me to just be able to step into that and have endless mentors that are just there. They've been through so many experiences, investing, personal, and it was just more, I think, starting a career for myself. It was more where I wanted to be, and maybe down the line could do something more entrepreneurial. But within the next 5 to 10 years, starting out a career, the idea of having to get my own clients, start my own wealth management firm, or just really make money, overwhelming.
Yeah, so at the end there, you dropped out just a little bit. You said before you start building your own client pool, this was a good place also to gain skills and
Right.
knowledge.
Yeah. So yeah, if I wanted to do that down in the future, you would have a little bit more confidence, experience, knowledge. But coming in from that pretty young, it's a pretty difficult thing to do.
Okay, great, thank you. So you told us a little bit about your current role, and that you're managing UVA's endowment, which is, where is it right now at our level?
Yeah, so we actually just had the second highest performance year in history. So it's about 14.5 billion now, which is really significant. It was, I think, about like 9-10 billion as of last year. So it was a really great year across the country for financial markets, and we were very lucky to benefit from that.
That's really terrific. So that's great for all of us to know about our own school's finances. And in fact, I think that really catapults us into the top 20, probably.
I don't think that's canonic. I think a lot of colleges also had, some really stellar years. So I think maybe other colleges now just have even bigger ones as well. I think
right. So we're probably in a similar position. Well,
yeah.
terrific. All right. Thank you. Can you talk a little bit more about your role?
Yeah.
What it means to be an investment analyst and how you do your work?
Sure, yeah. So we've been working virtually now. I've been in the office a few times, but I haven't, had my desk and been in every day due to COVID. We're still working virtually. And it's working great. We have, lots of Zoom meetings with managers. That really is, at the end of the day, just to take a step back, a lot of people don't know how UVIMCO specifically works, and I think that we're kind of more doing direct investing, so investing like on the stock market, like you do personally. But our model is different. It's actually based on predominantly manager selection. So our job is to pick the best and brightest managers around the globe and allocate money to them based on our risk tolerance, different asset classes. There's a lot that goes into that. And so we allocate funds to them, and then they're the ones that do the investing. So my role, we have, I think our staff's 40, 45, and about 18 of us are on the investment team. We have 4 analysts, which is time in. And our role, along with the is really diligent. At the end of the day, that's all what we do. We're doing manager diligence, we're writing analyses, have investment committee memos, and our job is to find the managers, work with them, understand the strategy, go through any questions we have with them, and these processes months, not even years. Understand their background, their track record, things like that. So at the end of the day, our job is really diligent, figuring out.
Cassidy, oops. We are having a little bit of trouble hearing you. Can we try again?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, that's good.
I think it came up and said it was muted.
Okay, let's give it a shot now. I'm sorry. Can you go back a little bit into explaining about a little after the interviewing different managers?
Yeah, sure. So
Thank
it's
you.
just so we interview the managers, and then we have kind of a set of standard analyses that we like to conduct. So we do those. We're in charge of doing those, and a lot of it comes down to reading different data, staying in the market, figuring out what information we can present to see if that us help them make decisions. So after a while, you can kind of get the hang of the things they're looking for, figure out how you can best tune your analysis to what the senior staff need to understand in order to make their decision. So at the end of the day, while it's a supporting role and we're helping the senior staff, we have a really large role in the student staff. They're constantly asking us for our opinions, and they really like that fresh perspective coming out of undergrad and having this new look at the market. So it's really very collaborative, taking a lot of meetings with managers, good amount of writing. We definitely need to have good writing skills, good Excel skills, things like that. But yeah, at the end of the day, it really just comes down to diligence. And every day we just ask ourselves, is this the best way that we can invest UVA's money in order to fulfill their mission?
Okay, great, thank you. I'm going to just do a quick sound check. Okay. Thank you. This is just to our students out there. Can you put your thumbs up and let me know if you're having a little trouble hearing? You can actually see real thumbs. So thumbs up means you're having a little trouble hearing. Okay, let's figure out how to do that, because we've got, Cassidy has a lot of important information to share, and I want to make sure that we can all hear it. Okay. So Cassidy, I think it's between you and me and Flora too. We want to just look at our settings and make sure that maybe our, thank you everybody, our input is loud enough. Okay. And everyone, please make sure that your mics are off. I think there might be some volume coming through from our guests. Okay, great. All right, let's try it again now. Feel free to send a text if you are having trouble hearing, and if after you've played with your own settings, you are still having trouble, you can send a note to Flora. Okay, thank you. All right, so let's talk about the genesis of this position. How did you learn about the position in the first place?
Yeah, so I found it on Handshake actually. But, I think a lot of colleges are definitely using that these days. So UVI definitely wanted, to target there. But yes, I found the position on Handshake, and I had been aware of what they do and the endowment for a few years. So I really was targeting that position. This is kind of figured out that was the job that I wanted. And yeah, I really think it came down to Handshake. We don't advertise outside of UVA students for the analyst position. So it's definitely, a pretty targeted opportunity.
Okay, so then what happened next? You found it on Handshake, and then what did you do? Let's get down to tactics here.
Yeah, definitely.
What happened next?
So it was largely about networking, I'd say. I definitely went to all UVIMCO. We're kicking off our recruiting, or I guess we did last week, but then we'll have a bunch more in a couple of weeks. It was all about networking and recruiting and getting to know the team. I probably ended up talking to like half the team before I applied, which was really useful because then they all knew me. But yeah, so I probably in August, probably even before the Handshake position came out, I started just cold emailing people on the team, and I just sent them a quick note introducing myself very briefly, asking if they'd had a few minutes, just like 15 to 20 minutes on Wednesday or Thursday or whatever day. Fridays are typically pretty good days. People don't have a lot of meetings. Typically Mondays and Fridays have less meetings than the middle of the week. That's just a tip in general. But yeah, so I asked for just 15, 20 minutes of their time to learn about the process and any, questions, answer anything like that. And I think all of them responded. Actually, they were super, super responsive. And, I think at a bigger firm, maybe that's not the case, but it's still a good idea. And you probably will be able to get people, especially if it's UVA alumni. I particularly targeted people that had worked in econ, because a lot of times, it's kind of a nice, tight alumni network that stays together. So yeah, I reached out to people, and I ended up talking to a lot of them even before the networking session started. And then I went to all of them, the networking sessions. So it was definitely like a full speed experience for me. I really put everything into one job. And I think when you do that, and I know it's hard to do that, definitely if you have to cast a wide net, but for me, I really was focused on this. And so when you do that, I think it really comes out in the interviews, and it was really like people were like, oh, I've talked to her already. Like I know her already. And yeah, I think it really, when you care so deeply about something, you want something so badly, I think it's pretty easy to come out. So definitely that is something I recommend.
Yeah, so I think it takes, a lot of confidence, or at least it looks like confidence for, for students to go out there and do that and make themselves known. What did you say in these cold calls? and these emails that you sent out?
Yeah. I think I just, hi, insert name. It was like only a few sentences. I said, like something like by way of introduction, my name is Cassidy Fritz. I'm currently an undergraduate at UVA, majoring in economics. I'd love to learn if you have time. You obviously have to be grateful for their time because they might not be available. If you have availability, would you be willing to speak with me? Or I'd love to speak with you for 15 to 20 minutes on Wednesday or Thursday regarding the firm and your recruiting process. And then just say, maybe you could say, I'm grateful for your time, or I look forward to hearing back from you. And then attach your resume. Probably not a cover letter, that's too soon, but you can say like, I've attached my resume, or enclose your resume, something like that, if you want more background on me. So really just like 3 sentences in your resume, because I keep in mind how many emails these people are getting every day. Any firm is like that, but a lot of marketing emails and things specifically for UVIMCO we get from managers. So they'll definitely be interested, because it's not every day that they're getting emails from people for any firm, really just during recruiting season only. So they'll definitely be interested, but it's kind of a matter of making it clear that you know what you want to talk about. You'll have some questions, just really brief. Honestly, people don't like long rambling emails. If you like give them like too much backstory, because they'll ask you on the call, they'll say, hey, can you give me 2 minutes of background on you? So always have that prepared, like your elevator pitch, to walk me through your resume, that type of thing.
Okay, great. Very helpful. And then what kinds of questions would you ask when you were when you had these calls?
Yeah. So I definitely try to keep it like 15, 20 minutes. And sometimes they'll be like, oh, do you have more, more time, maybe 30 minutes, if you have more questions. So you always want to have that prepared. You never want to just go in with like 2 questions and then hang up, because it's, taking time out of their day. Like you want to make it worth their while. So I always went in with 3 to 5 questions. It's definitely good to have more, in case some people, give like to give long answers. Some people are more straight to the point. So you definitely want to have a variety of things. And then obviously be listening to what they say to come up with follow-up questions. But I remember asking, how did the role change during COVID? What are the responsibilities? What are the main things that you want to see someone in my position accomplish within the first 6 months? I think that's an important question to know how to start out. And then even when I got the job, I was trying to remember that. What did I ask? Oh, I remember asking specifically for UVIMCO, because it was a UVA team. I asked, what it's like to work with a team that is, predominantly UVA mission. And then just general, they do some travel. So I asked about that. I asked about what the day-to-day looks like, which is, everyone always asks that one, so that's a good one. Yeah, I think those are the main ones, because you definitely want to keep it brief, and kind of, it's okay to ask the same people at the same firm the same questions, because it's cool to get like a consensus opinion. Then that it's really, really representative of what you'd experience.
Right. So you bring up a really good point there. You're trying to find out if it's the right fit for you, right? And if you get multiple opinions, or different opinions, that's something to think about too, as you're trying to determine what a culture is like. So, keep your notes along the way too. So, was there anybody who didn't respond? And we don't have to name them, but just if anyone didn't respond, and how you handled that? Did you reach out again? And
there was 2 people that didn't respond. One of them had moved on from the company. So, and also I think I was using VAM, the Virginia Alumni Mentoring Network, for some of it. And so people don't check them and things like that. I find that for networking calls, it probably isn't a good idea to follow up too much, just because if you already cold emailed them, typically they'll respond if they're willing to speak with you. So I think it's more important to cast a wide net, and then you'll get, like, someone is going to respond to you. You're not going to just, unless your request is, do you have an hour, or can you get lunch with me, or something that's like unrealistic, someone's going to be willing to give you 15 minutes of their time if you cast a wide enough net. So that was more my strategy. And then if somebody didn't respond, it was just okay. Like, they're busy, maybe they missed the email. It's just kind of that, as opposed to following up endlessly, which you can follow up, probably not more than once, and give them at least a week to respond. I know a lot of people, have full inboxes. So
Okay, great. So don't be deterred, or let's just say discouraged if you don't hear back from somebody, and move on to somebody else
Yeah.
for first cold call. Okay. And you do think it's okay to get back in touch twice?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I would say not more than twice, but sometimes things just fall to the end of people's inboxes. So
Yes.
just one sentence, like follow up, wanted to shoot this to the top of your inbox, see if you're willing to speak with me. However, I understand if you're not able, or just something super quick.
Thank you. Okay, great advice. So just going back a little bit. So before you and I met, you had been involved already with the career services offices at UVA. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how you use them in your
Yeah.
search?
Yeah, definitely. So I think I probably annoyed them with how many different people I wanted them to review my resume and cover letter, because they're all there. So I was like, might as well use it. Had a lot of appointments down in Bryan Hall pre-COVID. Spoke with pretty much everyone that I possibly could get my hands on, had them review my resume, because everyone is going to say something different. They're going to catch something different, and it's super helpful. I did the mock interviews as well. I believe that I did it with Drew, which I think he's gone now, but he was super helpful with the mock interviews. Especially like I think my mock interview turned more into me being like, I don't even know how to answer these questions. Can you help me? So they're definitely super flexible, and you can never have enough interview practice. So the more people that are there and willing to help you interview, the more people you should take up on that. So those are the main things I did. I also I went to all the career fairs. I was definitely pre-COVID meeting anyone. And I think it's important, even if you're not interested, like super interested in going and working at that firm, it's a really good thing to walk up to somebody and shake their hand and practice their elevator pitch. And the more times you do things, the more times anything is repeated, you're going to get better at it. So if there's one firm that you really, really want to work at, you should make that like your 5th visit, and just go to a couple other places, introduce yourself, do everything the exact same way that you want to, but you'll do it better the 5th time or the 3rd time or whatever. So I definitely think going to the career fairs, even if there's not a company there that you want to work at, you need that experience, especially coming off of Zoom. Maybe all of us are still better at sitting in front of our cameras, and I feel a little like shaky. Like if I was in front of you guys today, I'd probably be a little shaky. Like I haven't done this in a while. So it's definitely a good idea to get yourself out there in any way possible. And then also, this is off topic, but if you're going to be interviewing on Zoom, you should get used to looking at yourself on camera. Like right now I'm looking at myself because you have me spotlighted. And if this was like a year ago during my interview, I probably would have been like paranoid. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to look at myself. Like it just really, like the first couple of times, it really freaks you out. You're used to looking at like a lecture note or a professor. So the more that you just stare at yourself on Zoom for a little bit, practice interviewing your questions, like anything like that you just want repetition, so that on the big day of your big interview for whatever company that is, all the things that you're anxious about have already been practiced. You already know what you're doing. I mean, I think I was impressed with how I did on my interviews, and I think I definitely practiced. I spent a lot of time putting effort into that. And I pleasantly surprised myself at how I felt really composed and like I answered the questions well. And I really think that came down to practice and making sure that I knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, you really can't overestimate practice. And, you had an advantage too of working with students as a fellow, as an undergraduate teaching fellow. For those of you who really aren't speaking to groups of people often, or even one-on-one with people who you're not familiar with, and this has happened, of course, because of COVID, that's been, even more, been impacted even more. Practice with people. And you can use VMOC initially. So for those of you who don't know, just as a plug for VMOC here, you can practice your pitch in VMOC. It is an AI tool that is inside Handshake, and it records you and it scores you. VMOC also does give you resume scores based on some AI algorithms, so you can also use it for that. And it does also connect with your LinkedIn profile and will score your LinkedIn profile and make suggestions for you. So, take advantage of that that you have. Do mock interviews with your peers and also with career coaches like me and the Career Center. So that's all really great advice. I have many more questions, but I want to open it to our group here for questions. So before we start that, could everybody in the chat please just put in your year and your major or majors? And if you're undeclared at this point, that's fine, include undeclared. So just in the chat, let us see that. So Cassidy knows a little bit more about this group here that we have with her today. And was waiting for the chat, for all that information to come in the chat, just a couple of things about when you ask your question. Your question can be, ask by chat, that's fine. I'm going to wait before you, don't put those in there yet because we're waiting for everyone's information to come through the chat. It'd be great if you'd use your mic, right? If you'd unmute yourself, say your name, say your year, say hello to Cassidy, and then ask your question. So it would be name, year, and then ask your question with your mic unmuted. Good practice, right? Starting right here, or you can use the chat. So let's start with somebody who is willing to turn off their mic and, turn on their mic and ask a question. We'll see how that goes. We have a big group, so it might be hard. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I'd be happy to jump in.
Do it. Let's go.
Okay, sorry, my video is not working, but I go to McIntyre. I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. For
That's
McIntyre,
all right. Go ahead.
I just transferred from Nova Community College, and I'm looking to concentrate in finance.
Okay, great. Thank you. And did you have a question for Cassidy?
I had the chance to attend the UVIMCO sesh on Thursday, I think it was, at McIntyre. So I'll let people go ahead first. And
okay, great. All right, thank you. All right, so we can see in the chat that we've got a lot of third years here, a few first years, fourth years. I think some people are in Professor Sanagini's 3010 class. Because I know he sent this information out to his students. So let's hear from someone. Go ahead and you can put your questions in the chat now, or you can unmute yourself and ask your question directly to Cassidy.
I have a question.
And tell us your name.
I'm Gavin. I'm a first year. I'm undecided. My question is, when would you recommend applying? Would you apply? Would you start doing stuff first year and to get prepared, or would you start later?
Do you mean just applying to UVIMCO or just in general? Any
UVIMCO, or
yeah.
any in general, honestly.
Yeah, I think we've definitely had some people who are going to be interns if they're rising second years. I think it's more common to do it when you're a rising third year or rising fourth year. I think that typically what happens is if you're a younger intern, I can't really speak for UVIMCO because I wasn't an intern there, but I think typically it's more likely that you'll get something for like a local firm when you're after your first year, or maybe something unpaid. I haven't heard of a lot of people that are rising second years gonna do like a big internship, like a New York City one. I know a lot of people at McIntyre want that. I think it's more likely that you would end up with something like through the Career Center. I know they have like the internship placement program, something a little bit smaller, like something like I did, where it was a small, but the interview process for the wealth management firm was, very quick. I think I only had one interview. So kind of just like the smaller type firms, you can be more competitive, especially ones that are in like your hometown, maybe. I think that when you're rising third year and then a rising fourth year, it looks, certainly when you're rising fourth year, it's important. But when you're rising third year, especially, I think that shows initiative if you have an internship then. But I think that when you're rising second year, no company would be like, oh, why didn't you do an internship after your first year? Like, I don't think that anyone's really expecting that from you. So if you wanted to work or do something different, I think you have a little bit more flexibility after your first year.
Thank you.
So just to piggyback on that, in VAM, which is the Virginia Alumni Mentor Database that Cassidy mentioned earlier, there are micro internship projects that are especially interesting to first and second years who might be looking to build up their experience and their skills. Short-term projects, 4 to 6 weeks. Sometimes those are even paid, so you can check those out. In addition to the internship placement program, which is IPP, that you'll find in Handshake and Jobs under IPP.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't get discouraged if you don't find something for next summer. That is in no way, a reflection on you or your abilities at all. I think it's more just the age and, still a teenager kind of thing. So it's harder to get that, maybe like a big internship or something.
Okay, other questions for Cassidy? I've got a whole list, so okay, great. We've got a question here. All right, this is from Jade. What are your recommendations for fourth years?
In terms of internships or?
Jade, yeah, do you mean, and you can unmute yourself, do you mean for internships, for full-time roles, for skill building? Can you be a little more specific?
I mean for like jobs after I graduated, and also like for skills or anything that like you think might be helpful for any like fourth year going to like jobs market.
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of skills, I know that people say a lot, but having proficiency in Microsoft Office Suite, Excel, Word is really important, especially Word. I don't think everyone's always like, oh, get really good at Excel, but the amount of times that you're going to be writing things, presenting things in Word form is really important. So I would say that having those skills, or being like really good at Word and knowing how to use that, is actually a little bit more unique than being really good at Excel, because everybody's told to do that. I would say that PowerPoint, things like that, you're going to have a lot of presentations and things like that. So those are the main skills for me, just being able to, cohesively present materials. In terms of, like skills otherwise that are not like technical, I would say critical thinking is important. Being able to write things concisely is really important. I know something I struggle with in college is that a lot of times in college you'll have a limit, or like a minimum. You have to write a 10-page paper, or you get points off, and then you go to college, or you go to a job, and they're like, no, like do not write more than one paragraph for me. Like give me 2 sentences. If you write me 10 pages, I'm not going to read it. Like that type of thing. So you really have, no one's actually saying that. It's just that they're thinking it, and you have to frame your mind around that and think, how can I best present the information concisely? And I know that's hard in college. So actually a good class for that is, if you're an econ major, not behavioral, experimental economics with Charlie Holt. He makes you write a paper at the end, and he's really strict about writing short sentences and a little page limit. Like, he does it really good at it. He's like, hey, you're not going to be writing like long theses in your career. So that's a really good class for that, because he'll force you to do it basically, or you won't get a good grade. So I really recommend that. I actually took that my last semester before I started my job, so that helped a lot. But yeah, I think that, so being concise is really important. Critical thinking. I think being not afraid to speak up when you go into a job as a new analyst, or whatever your role is. You kind of assume, or at least I did, maybe people wouldn't want to hear my opinion as much, but they really do. And it's all about that fresh perspective. And you're coming from UVA, like you're coming from a fantastic school with so many experiences, so many good professors, like just a world-class education. And the reason that they hired you in part is because you came from this fantastic school. So really understanding like when it's appropriate to share your mind. You kind of pick up on the environment of your firm. For me personally, we kind of like to send each other interesting articles, things like that. So just kind of keeping track of things like that, and how engaged you are with the material, because at the end of the day, it really comes down to engagement. I think whether it's interviewing or being successful in your job, if you're not interested in it and you're not engaged, that's going to come out, and it's going to be pretty hard for you to, be successful.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple of questions that have come in, and we're going to get to Stephen, your question in a minute, but I do want to focus on very specifically the UVIMCO job search process. Can you talk us through what the expectations are when students are submitting resumes from your experience? I know you haven't been there that long, but what UVIMCO expects students to know how to do, and what the interview process is like.
Yeah. So the interview process, so applications are due in a couple weeks, and then you get selected within like 2 days for a first round interview. First round interview will be with 2 people. I think it's about 30 minutes. And then they'll let you know within a week if you get a second round. And then the second round would be probably about 10 to 14 days later. And then if you got an offer, it would be within a week again. So it's pretty condensed, 3 to 4 weeks, which is pretty typical, I'd say. But yeah, so if you were doing this, you would be applying, I think, September 12th, and then you would know if you had an offer, within a month. So they definitely don't leave anyone hanging or anything like that. But yeah, in terms of the actual, what did you say, interview process?
Yeah.
And then
What are the in order to get an interview?
Oh, okay, right.
What do you think? What is the firm looking for? And then what are the interview questions like? Is it behavioral, or are there cases, that sort of thing?
Okay, yeah. So definitely interested in investing. That's really big. A passion for UVI. Personally, for me, coming from like a small town, the only reason I was able to afford UVA was through the Access UVA scholarship. And so, I expressed that in my cover letter, how I really wanted to give back to the university and how my interest in finance coupled with that really made this the perfect role for me. And it absolutely has been. And so like I had that special connection, I'd say, to UVA and, what an impact it had on my life. So if you have something like that with UVA, that I think everyone at the company shares a love for UVA. And I think everyone at the school does, but that's definitely important. Definitely looking for an interest in investing. So for me, I said I'd been investing since I was like 16 in my Roth. And it was just really important to me to have like financial literacy, financial knowledge, because in the small town I came from, there really wasn't that. So it was kind of like this big step for me. So they're definitely looking for an interest in investing. If you've had, any companies you've invested in, any stories you have there in terms of whether it was a good investment, a bad investment, what you learned, really just thinking through like your own diligence process in investing, that's really important. If you have any investors in the space you recognize, that's a big deal. Because a lot of times, like I said earlier, people don't really know what we do. So if you show that you know, that definitely stands out. In terms of like, did they quiz me on Excel? No, they weren't making me, do some big technical skill set. I think there was a case study, just a brief case study in the second round interview, which was nothing crazy hard. They're very nice, and they walk you through it and they help you out. But at the end of the day, I remember they said to me, "What we do isn't really taught in college. Like you couldn't know this coming into it. So it's all about picking the right people, the right cultural fit, and then they're going to teach you what to do." And that's absolutely been the case. I've been there since January. And I think about what I know now compared to what I knew then. It's not even funny. It's not something any, professor could teach you, but what they can teach you, and econ specifically, is, how to think globally, how to think broadly, how to analyze, all those like skills that you're learning. Those are what really set you up for success in the job, and then they'll teach you the rest.
Okay, great, thank you. Do you think that your experience, the internship experience that you had, was important to help you get that interview?
I do, yeah. I think if you don't have any experience in investing right on your resume or in your cover letter, it's pretty hard for them to know, well, why are you applying to this? You don't really stand out. So I'd say that if you don't have investing experience on your resume, and that's totally fine if you don't, write about it in your cover letter, even just a few sentences. If you can include your interest, any personal stories that you have there. I know some people help their parents manage their finances or just things like that if they're interested in investing. So if you have any connection, I would include that in your cover letter, because they're definitely going to read both. It's not like a big firm where they use AI and they're going to, only look for certain keywords. Like there is a real person, people looking at your resume, your cover letter. So, if you don't have to feel like your resume, just because it doesn't have investing experience, isn't good enough. Certainly that's not the case.
Okay, so it's really important we know that UVIMCO is reading their cover letters, right? And when sometimes students are thinking, should I submit a cover letter or not? If it's optional, in this case, we know with UVIMCO, go ahead and submit your cover letter.
Yeah, definitely. I think for them, it's, it's a small firm, and it being a cultural fit is really important. And also, like I said, we write a lot. So the quality of writing has to be pretty strong.
Great, thank you. Other questions for Cassidy? We have time for one last question, and then I have a question for all of you, all of our students.
I think there are some that came in the chat, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think we may have covered them. You go ahead and take a look, see if there's anything there.
Oh, okay.
Well, Stephen's question, would you recommend applying to those big companies where in your first year, second year, just to be familiar with the people and process of recruiting?
If you have the time and you're willing to do that practice, then yes, absolutely. Because even they'll record it, like say you're applying to like JP Morgan or something, they'll have that in their system that you've applied and you've been interested, and it's all about demonstrating interest. And whether that's through networking, applying 3 times when you're young, you have to stand out in some way if you don't have like a family connection or something like that. So I think that, yeah, I mean, if you have the time and some people have like resume and cover letter templates that they'll just alter then based on which company they're applying to. And so if you have one of those ready or you're going to work on that, I think it can't hurt, but just know that, if you're first year something, I'm not saying it can't happen, but it probably won't, and that's not a reflection on you.
Yeah, so you're building relationships at this
Yeah.
point.
And that is what it's all about. Finances. People might not think, finance, it's all about the numbers, but finance is all about people.
Wonderful, thank you. Cassie, thank you for being with us. We're going to wrap up with a quick activity. So then we can get onto our office hours. We do have 3 students signed up for you for office hours. I love everybody in the chat to send us one thing that they have learned today. One little nugget of wisdom, something you had maybe thought about before, but you weren't sure about. Go ahead in the chat and just share a couple of those items with us, and I will send those on, or Flora will send those on after our program to all of you when she sends an evaluation. So go ahead, we're waiting to see your brilliant ideas that come through in the chat, and then I'm going to turn this over to Flora to close our program for us.
Something I'll just say is the UVIMCO, if you're specifically interested in UVIMCO, look on Handshake. We have some recruit events coming up. I think they're the week after Labor Day, the 8th, 9th, and 10th. And if you have any questions that you didn't get to ask me specifically, I have a bunch of 10-minute networking sessions open at the Commerce Career Center, or Commerce Career Day, which you don't have to be in the comm school to apply for or to visit. So if you want to get any more questions, then I think it's 10 to 3 on Friday the 10th, and I'll be there.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And then Flora is also going to post in the chat our career series flyer with events for the rest of the semester, and the Commerce Career Fair is included on that with all the links to Handshake.
Great.
All right, great. All right, thank you, everybody. Look at these great things that you've learned popping through in the chat. Cassidy, thank you so much. And Flora, take it away.